What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast interview where every single week I interview top entrepreneurs and strip top badasses that are out there dominating their space. And today, guys, we got an extremely special guest, an extremely special place that is such a huge honor for me to be here with our guest today. You guys, this is my biggest business mentor. His biggest fan. I was telling Ryan before we hit the record button that when I started this podcast 5 years ago, I had to define what winning would look like for this podcast for me. And at that time, and throughout this whole process, it was getting Ryan Blair on the podcast. This is a guy that has just been an icon, a legend in my world, and we always have looked up to him at the highest level, in the highest regard, and never fathomed to be here with him in person in his house doing this. So now this is Ryan's second time on the podcast. If you guys didn't see his first podcast, we're gonna have a link below wherever you're watching this, wherever you're listening to this. There'll be a link below where you can hear all of Ryan's story and where he was at that point in his life, which is about 3 years ago. But really stoked and honored to have my friend and my mentor, Ryan Blair, on the podcast for a second time.
Thank you, brother.
Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Yeah, who would have thought that when we did the first podcast, we'd be sitting here in my home a few years later, right? We didn't make that plan, but that's the way it turned out.
Yeah, man, it's just, I'm just waiting to be pinched to still wake up, dude. It feels so surreal. And spend the last couple of days with you, which we'll get into here during the interview, man. It's just been such an epic experience. So honored to be here. And but man, so in the last podcast when we had you on, you were just releasing your second book, Rock Bottom to Rockstar, and you've had a lot that you've been through and a lot of growth that's taken place since then. And before we get into that, though, just for those that maybe didn't see the first podcast, can you just kind of give a quick background to your journey to entrepreneurship and how you got your start in entrepreneurship and your journey that's led you to here?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the kind words, my brother. My journey that's led me to here, I've been an entrepreneur since I was a street entrepreneur. So I was in a gang. I wrote a book called Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain, which you'd read, of course. And as a result of writing that book, that's part of how our relationship came to be. So a lot of people that haven't read the book, I started in the middle class. My dad was an engineer. The middle class was ripped away from me when my dad got addicted to drugs and my mom became an alcoholic. I was enforced into a gang as a result of my sister's best friend was murdered, and next thing you know, I'm head deep in a gang at about 14 years old and getting into all kinds of trouble. Went to juvenile hall a couple of times, and I'm from the Los Angeles area, so it was a pretty rough time and a pretty rough place for me. Got in a lot of fights, was an enforcer in the gang. And by the grace of God, a mentor came into my life by way of my mother when I was 17 years old. And my life changed forever. He taught me entrepreneurship. He was a real estate investor. So he had a foreclosure business. He was an old school, penny pinching, make me go change the toilet. I would argue with him all the time. Like, why am I changing this toilet for the third time? And he'd make me do all kinds of dirty work. And at the time, I didn't realize he was helping build character and helping build some resolve in me. But so I had a mentor at 17 years old that taught me entrepreneurship, and having gone from the middle class and then witnessing, going from the middle class to poverty, and then becoming a part of the wealthy class. But I wasn't wealthy, but I was all of a sudden being mentored and the stepson of a wealthy man. He didn't give me any money. He let me live with him for about a year, but I got to change my identity from poor to wealthy, basically. And then I said, all right, what do these people do differently? And what I saw was, I saw how the middle class worked, and I saw how poverty worked, and I, experienced those two models, and then I experienced the wealthy model, and I decided that I'd become an entrepreneur from there. And that's what my first book, Nothing to Lose, is about. It's about my experience with him. And then Rock Bottom to Rockstar is about how I literally gone from a rock bottom moment to becoming a rock star in the business world, by my definition anyways, having built my company ViSalus to a $700 million exit, $792 million exit. And during that journey, my mother had relapsed into alcoholism, fallen down a flight of stairs, and she was in a coma for 2 years. Also, I have a 10-year-old boy, 11-year-old boy almost now, but at that time, he had been suffering from autism. So I documented my journey about dealing with a son with autism, a mother that was in a coma state, in a hospitalization state thereof after she woke up, which is a total miracle. And so Rock Bottom to Rockstar talks about, the lessons I learned building and scaling a business through some very difficult emotional family hardships.
Yeah.
And now I'm working on my third book.
Yeah, love it, man. So then, and this is something I hadn't shared with you, but when I got turned on to your first book, Nothing, Lose Everything to Gain, it was halfway through my entrepreneur career, and I just lost everything. Right? Lost my life savings, was $100,000 of credit card debt at the time. I was too afraid to even tell my wife.
Yeah.
Right? My excuse at the time was, I got us into this mess. She's at home with her kids. I had a third kid on the way at that time, and but I was like, she doesn't need to partake in these sleepless nights with me. The reality was I was just too much of a pussy to tell her.
Yeah.
Right? But man, I just would put your book on just repeat. It's what got me through that time, right? Because you're so authentic in sharing your story of, everybody sees what you have today and they think, oh, that's, it is great and all the success you've created is great, but sharing your story and all the hardships that you've been through, man, it's unbelievable. And which has really led you to the movement you're doing now, and the experience that I just went through with the last couple of days with you. And so picking up from our last podcast, when we just talked about after talking about rock bottom, rock star, what transitioned the last few years?
The past few years, I've endured, endured, I guess, for lack of better words, the greatest change that I've ever experienced in my entire life. I've reinvented myself a number of times, and this time around it wasn't like reinvention, it felt more like resurrection. Losing my mother impacted me more than I thought it would. So for 7 years, she was in and out of a coma, in and out of the ICU, and I was using a process that I talk about in Rock Bottom to Rockstar called compartmentalization to manage, being able to build my business, become a New York Times bestselling author, achieve my goals, and also, knowing that any day I could get a telephone call and my mother would pass away. That built up a tremendous amount of scar tissue, for lack of better words. And when she passed away, all that scar tissue had to get worked out. And broke my heart in a million ways. And coupled with that, I was engaged in toxic behavior. I was self-medicating. I was living a rock star lifestyle. So a combination between agony and grief and a rock star lifestyle is just not a good combination. And so I made a commitment on my mother's deathbed that I would change and that I would become the leader that I was destined to become. And for the past 2 years, a little over 2 years now, I've just taken, aggressive steps every single day to do that. And what I mean by aggressive steps, we're talking about right now the coronavirus and quarantine and all this stuff. Like, I quarantined myself for 2 years, a real quarantine where I wouldn't talk to people, I didn't engage with people. I reread every book that I'd ever read. I was moved by or inspired by. I rewatched every documentary, and I would just sit there in silence. I discovered so many things during this period of time, but I said to myself, I made a deal with my mom and with God, and that everything that I'd gone on in my life must have happened for a reason. And I was just destroyed when I lost her, because there's a lot of things that I wish I could have said to her. We all have that remorse when we lose a loved one, but there was a lot of things that I wish I would have been able to say to her and able to experience with her that I wasn't. And so the past 2 years have been a complete identity change, so to speak. I don't even recognize, I've been able to take with me the good from the things that I did, but I'll see myself on TV or stuff like that, and it's like, that's the old me. Yeah, it's been a dramatic change.
Yeah, awesome stuff, man. So then, was that 2 years? Was a lot of that process just to get clarity on, because you made a commitment that you were now going to become the leader that you were destined to be.
Yeah.
Right. But when so you hear this stuff of, I got to step into my greatness, but then I sit there and look at, what is my greatness?
Yeah.
Right. How do I get clarity on what that is? Was that a big part of that purpose of getting that clarity, so now you could devote the rest of your life to knowing what that what that would be?
Yeah. It's like peeling an onion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of tears involved in it, right? But I had to strip down all of this stuff. I had to strip down my attachment to all the stuff. What I mean by that is, I had a fleet of cars and a private jet and all these things that I thought made me me. And I had to strip down all the stuff. I had to abandon my ideas around so many different things, because I wanted to be the best leader I could be, but I most importantly wanted to be the best father I could be, because I had a son that had a lot of behavior problems as a result of his autism, and I was deeply concerned about how he was going to grow up and who he was going to turn into. The process was, I had to get to zero, to a place of zero. So, and each time you kind of strip something off, you then have to go rethink all these different things and reconsider some of the decisions that you made in your life, and you have to process those decisions that you made, and the sins and the regrets and the mistakes, because you didn't really appreciate life the way you should have, perhaps. I didn't appreciate life the way I should have. There was a lot of time that I wasted that I could have had with my mom that I was mad about. And there was a lot of people that wasted my time too that I was mad about that as well. And so I had to recalibrate my entire existence to become the person that I knew I was capable of becoming. Yeah. And I mean, when I say every experience, I had to rethink my involvement in that and ask myself, what was it that worked there? What was it that didn't work? And what would I do differently? But I had to take a long period of time in solitude to do that, because my life was loaded with a lot of experiences, just by the fortune of the way I was raised and all the experiences that I had, and the challenges that I had endured. And I call it a fortune because those challenges created tremendous amounts of light, and in some cases trauma. And so I had to go and dig deep into trauma and dig deep into places where I had light and really try to understand what is the meaning of all of this. Right? Like why did I have a child with autism? Why did I have a mom in a coma for 2 years? Why did I get forced into a gang? Why did I lose my dad? Why did my mom go to become an alcoholic? Why did I have spirituality enter my life at such a young age? Like, this is like a big mess. And I've somehow figured out how to achieve monetary success and material success in the mess, which was fantastic. And everybody was like, how the heck did he do that? And then I had to go, maybe there was a purpose to my story that I was missing the whole time.
Yeah.
And, it was a lot of deep soul searching, a lot of meditation, a lot of hikes in nature. I did a vow of silence it was over 100 days, where I didn't speak to a single soul for over 100 days. And there's physical changes that comes when you do these types of things. Like my ears changed, my jaw changed, my eyes are bluer. I was able to find a balance in my physiology, and I'm able to do martial arts that I couldn't do before. I'm able to play basketball in ways that I couldn't play before. I healed old injuries. I came out of it just a renewed individual, unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah, so amazing, man. Because and then with that though too, that 2-year hiatus was, you exited from business.
Yeah.
You were off legit off the grid.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you just kind of took a break from your social life.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. With all these quarantine stuff that they're talking about, like you see people posting these bored videos, like they're walking around the house bored. I did that for 2 years. For 2 years I'd be playing basketball. You'd see me shooting hoops in the house. You'd see me playing with my dog. I'd just be like, I'm doing nothing but getting to me. And I did have some reprieve in some social media, but I'd post something and connect to some people. And I would work on new philosophy. I was writing a ton. So I would test some of the content on social media. And, I knew that everything that I was going through, but I had to clear a lot of stuff to get new wisdom, right? Because I had a lot of wisdom that I had learned from some great mentors and through the experience, but I had to as you grow, growth covers mud. And so I'm growing, but I got this mud in me. And every time you grow, you kind of, you discharge and you add to the mud. And if you don't learn how to shovel that mud out, eventually you stop growing. Yeah. And so I had a lot of mud to shovel out over that 2 years.
Yeah, a lot of healing to do.
Yeah, a lot of healing.
Yeah. So then at what point did you know or get clarity of what this next venture was going to be? Because you're a guy that could do anything. And you could also do nothing.
Yeah. That was the problem. That was the hardest. It's funny you mentioned that. You could tell you're a great entrepreneur. Because I could do nothing, and I did do nothing for a period of time, but then I know that I wasn't put on this planet to do nothing. right? So I was like, am I gonna open up a yoga studio, right? I even fantasized, like, maybe I'll just be a barista at Starbucks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can do anything, but I gotta get out of the house at some point, and I have to have some, thing that I do, like, for a career. So I had a lot of options, because I could afford to be a barista if I wanted to. And I thought to myself, I thought of lots of ideas. I'm blessed to have receive a lot of opportunities. And the irony of it is, it's like nothing would work. There's things that I tried to do that just fell apart. And so I knew that I wasn't supposed to do it if it fell apart, right? Like I would engage in a conversation, all of a sudden the person wouldn't show up for number 2. Or I would research something and start taking some action on it, and then just a little voice would tell me, that's not it. And so there was a lot of having to, because I wasn't ready to actually fully, be the leader that I was destined to be. And the commitment that I made was a big commitment, and it was on my mother's passing. And so there's a spiritual energy that occurs when you make such a commitment, and the forces at work that you can't see are like, nope, that's not gonna work for you, that's not gonna work for you. And that was the most frustrating thing, not having anything.
Yeah.
And knowing that I was being judged, and knowing that, that people were saying, he's done, he lost it. Knowing that, having fear of other people's opinions or care of other people's opinions, like I had to lose that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The healing process.
Yeah, well, so I would, what's crazy is I was gonna go sign a deal to start a new business. And I was like, I found it, I'm gonna do it. It was in technology, it was an AI related project. I'm gonna be a billionaire in my mind, right? And the day that I'm heading to sign it, I get word that my father had died. And I'm like, okay, I'm not supposed to do that deal, right? I'm literally driving there and I get word that my father had passed away. It was 1 year ago, almost to the date. And so that then, sent me into a bit of shock. I knew that I was gonna have to, get back to doing, the work that I had to do. And I utilized the tools that I learned in my mother's passing. And I had to go back to work when my father passed away. But that's how it works.
Yeah. All right, so through the 2-year hiatus, pause, reflection, healing moment that you went through, and then recently in October, you got clarity on what the next chapter of your life is going to look like. And you just launched a new venture, AlterCall, which I had the pleasure of just going through the experience with you the past couple of days. Give us kind of a breakdown of what AlterCall really is and what led to it.
Yeah. Well, AlterCall, it's ALTERCALL, which stands for, a call to change. To alter is to change. And that's exactly what I had done, is I had changed. And, it's funny, my son is like the biggest testimony of my change, because I don't lose my temper like I used to. I'm calm, I sleep well. I'm able to process what happens in life with the stress that we go through as leaders and as entrepreneurs. I have happiness, I have joy, I'm more athletic than I've ever been. I've changed. I'm 42 years old, and I've taken up music, I'm learning to sing. I like everything that, I put down as a kid that was taken away from me or ripped away from me, or that I gave up because somebody had criticized me or somebody had made fun of me or whatever it is. Like all of that stuff I've reconnected to, and I've never felt younger and never felt happier and never had more joy in my life. And my relationships with my son, with my son's mother, all those things that were strained in my life are like healed and doing great. And so I want to help other people do the exact same thing. And as I went through the 2 years, and I'm an engineering-minded person, I was testing these things on my own body. I would test different modalities. I would test different supplements, because I had a big weight loss company at Visalis, and we made a lot of different supplement products. And you're in the business, so people would send me different products, and I'd test them, and I'd look at how can I accelerate my healing. What are the techniques that I'm using and the practices that I'm using that are actually working? And I would test them. I would change my day around them. I'd look at the results. I'd look at the gains in my martial arts or my basketball, or just how did I feel? And I would make these constant adjustments. And then AlterCall came to me, interestingly enough. I was with a friend, and it was even prior to, I'd actually registered the domain name. Right when Rock Bottom to Rockstar had come out, I'd registered it. And I was just telling a friend, I don't know what it was, a joke came up and I said, my next company is going to be called AlterCall. And I didn't even have a plan to exit at that time by Salas. It wasn't in my, I had no idea what I was going to do or how I was going to do it. And I registered the domain, I parked it. And then as I was sitting here asking what I was going to do next, I owned a lot of domains. Like I owned Nothing to Lose, I owned rockbottom2rockstar.com, like a bunch of cool domains. And as I was sitting there, I was like, what am I going to do next? How am I going to do it? Or do I buy a company? And I looked at buying companies. I looked at buying rehab facilities because I'm passionate about helping people with addiction. I looked at all kinds of things. And then just a little voice told me, you already have the name. And so I went in and looked in my domain registry, and I have like hundreds of domains. And I saw the first one was AlterCall. And I'm like, is it AlterCall? And I thought about it, and I said, this exactly represents the change that I went through and the change that I want to help others go through. And right now in our society, we need change more than ever. This coronavirus is going to make a lot of people aware of the way that they're treating their bodies, the way that they're treating their lives. It's going to make a lot of people aware, that we're going to be in a new economy, in a new environment with regard to the economy, regardless of, whether we turn into a full-blown recession or, but things will change. People's habits, consumption will change. People will consume different things for a period of time, and that's going to have some effect on the economy for sure. And so, now is just the time to lead people with change. And we as a society need to have an AlterCall moment ourselves. And that's really what the name stands for. It's a moment where you're called to change. And that's what we do at our Transformation Day experience, which is the experience that you just shared, that you went through and had such a fun time at, is we take people through a very intense process of change. But we have a course that we're coming out with very soon. We have a digital summit or a virtual summit that we're doing. And I knew that everything that I've gone through, every experience, the pains that I've suffered, the mistakes that I've made, all of the shame that I've incurred, all of that stuff was purposely designed so I could help people through their own grief, through their own shame, through their own guilt, through their own difficulties. And I've just happened to have experienced most all of them, right? And so I can help people through, most anything. Yeah. And that's what AlterCall is about.
Yeah, and it was such a life-changing and mind-blowing experience. And I told you this before I came to AlterCall, but I've been struggling for the longest time on clarity of what I want next.
Yeah.
Right, where it just felt like forced action every day in the office. And I think as an entrepreneur, you go through these different phases where it's like in the beginning, I just needed money, and it was a challenge.
Yeah.
So it was so much fun and excitement. But then it gets to a point where you don't need money, and it's no longer a challenge. But then it's like it just became forced action, and for the first time in a lot of years, I have that clarity now. I'm inspired. I was reflecting this morning and journaling. It was going through the experience. It was like, even though I hadn't even talked to my wife in the few days we've been here, it's like, man, I love my wife more. I love my kids more. I love life more. I mean, it is such a powerful experience that everybody, regardless if you're an entrepreneur or not, needs to go through this type of experience, because there's so many people hurting.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes we get so busy in life, I don't think we slow down enough to realize how much we're hurting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's beautiful you say that. We've had a number of people come through our program, and it's a very intimate program, as you're aware. When they share with me what you just shared, like you have a greater appreciation for your wife and a greater appreciation for your children. We have different fuel sources that we can call upon in our lives. And often we call upon one fuel source to feed another, right? And we don't actually call upon that fuel source. And so love of our children is a fuel source. Love of our wife is a fuel source. And so we have to just learn to call the right fuels and to engage in the right sources of fuel in order for us to have the fire that we want to have and to conduct ourselves at the highest level and the purpose level and the cause level. And so it's beautiful that you've already identified just a few hours after we ended the event that, there's some fuel sources out there that you're like, ooh, there's some fuel there for me that I was perhaps not, because we try to separate our entrepreneurship from our family. And we try to separate and compartmentalize the things that we do in our lives. But what we don't realize is that the greatest fuel sources are the love that we have for the people that are in our lives, and the love that we have for ourselves. And so when you realize those fuel sources, and you take action on developing them, that's all you need to keep the fire lit indefinitely.
Yeah.
And then as so I used to have the fuel source much like you did. I wanted to win. I wanted to prove to myself that I wanted to win. I wanted to prove to others that I wanted to win. Somebody would say, Ryan Blair is not going to be able to do that, or he's going to fail, and I would, use that as a fuel source. And pretty soon I was just using the wrong fuel sources, and they're readily available all around you, but you put bad fuel in the tank and what happens, right? The engine doesn't go as far as it could. But you put the right fuel in the tank, and that engine can move quickly, and it'll move indefinitely. Yeah. And so at AlterCall, all we're trying to do is just teach you the different sources of fuel that you can tap into. And they come from within you, they come from your spirituality, they come from a connection to the creator, to the universe, to quantum, whatever it is that you want to call it, it's all the same stuff. It's finding a fuel source that's going to power you. And that's what people don't do. It's like they eat bad food, they take in toxic substances, as I did, they have toxic friends, toxic habits, read toxic news, engage in toxic, social media and things like that. And they don't realize that, that fuels them. And every time they put fuel in that tank, they're either repairing the engine or they're degrading the engine. Yeah. And pretty soon you're just tapping into the wrong sources, and you don't know that. So my job is to teach people how to tap into the sources that are unlimited, and to have, to have the most sustainable fuel sources.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Activating those fuel sources, you can elevate every aspect of your life, and it's a mantra of you guys here: activate and elevate. And what I thought was so amazing about it is a lot of entrepreneurs in the room, but there's high school, high school guys, and moms, and just from every different life that's just want to elevate life, and it's such powerful work for all of us to go through.
So I like having a group of people, because you seeing that high school kid might remind you of your high school child, or it might remind you of when you were in high school. You seeing the mom that's suffering, you might inspire you to call your mom, or it might inspire you to hold your mom into a higher regard because maybe she held it together better. So I like to take my core group as entrepreneurs, but I like to surround entrepreneurs with other people, because we get to see the families of the people that we serve. We get to see, we serve our internal teams, our employee teams, as well as our own families. But then we get to see, some of the decisions that we make and how that affects others. So I like to create a group of people where we're going to have things that trigger us to think differently, right? And so as opposed to just having a lot of entrepreneurs in the room that are all very similar, I like to have a collective of individuals from a variety of different areas and different regions from all around the world. And it's really cool, the people that have showed up, each time I hear an individual from their unique perspective, I learned something. So, the things that you were healing or the things that you were engaging in taught me something. And then as I witnessed other people going through the process, that taught me something. And, you guys were teaching each other things. And the whole environment is just to take all of our energy and to elevate it and to lift each other up together. And that's what the movement of AlterCall is all about, right? There are people out there that are suffering, and, I'm called to suffer with them and utilize my ability to take on that negative and to turn that into positive, so that, they're able to see the light at the end of that tunnel, and they're able to see the things that have affected them in the past as a beautiful thing, like the depression that you've endured. Like, that's going to make you so much more empathetic to people that are dealing with depression, right? So all of these things that you've gone through can strengthen you for others. If you just see that your purpose is not about you, but it's about you passing through these challenges so that you can be a strong leader and be able to serve more, and be able to serve with greater empathy and greater compassion and greater love, and serve with those fuel sources that we helped you discover and tap into, and that we continue to.
Yeah, one of the things I found most powerful through it, which I could write a book, I think, on just this experience now, is because the engineer mind that you have, and how you reverse engineer everything, of creating all of this, because I've read so many books and taking so many courses, and the dots weren't connected. It wasn't a systematic process per se to follow to be able to tap into these fuel sources, and it was laid out so effectively to tap in, where it's like, okay, that makes sense, and that's something also I can follow and I can do, versus the vagueness that you get when you try to spend years going down a journey. My job is to simplify. So having come from where I've come from, I see things just very simply. Right? And as a leader, we want to try to fight against complexity. And in our organizations, we want to reduce complexity as much as we possibly can. And the bigger the company that you create, the more complexity.
right, that you have by just the nature of a bigger company. So I would look at these various practices that I would study, and I've traveled the world. I went to Israel on a spiritual mission to try to learn, and went to the caves of Galilee where Jesus found his light, to the temples in Jerusalem, and to the mosques, and evaluating different practices. And I knew that if the practice continued for generations, there had to be some purpose as to why and some benefit that they were receiving. And so I then looked at the scientific studies around some of these various practices and tried to extract those that I could find scientific substantiation for, and then tried to simplify them so you didn't have to adopt a dogma, you didn't have to change all your clothes to meditate, you don't have to, just change everything about you to adopt some of the best practices. You could just find the simplest and the best practices to adopt in a variety of different modalities that I studied from different religions and different cultures all around the world, because I just wanted to simplify it, right? I wanted to bridge a deep spiritual connection without having to go to theology school or seminary or work my way up in some sort of hierarchy in a religious dogma that all of these other systems require you to do. I was like, this is, my job is to disrupt things. As an entrepreneur, I was always a disruptor, and my job is to disrupt things. And so AlterCall will disrupt a whole lot of standard ways of doing business in a variety of these modalities and practices out there.
Yep.
I want to bring them to the masses. I want to simplify them, and I want Christians and Muslims and Hindus and Buddhists all alike doing these simple practices without having to have attachment to the letter of the law, so to speak.
Yep, love it, man. And I don't want to go too in depth to all the experiences. Yeah. I want to make sure everybody that's watching and listening that goes through the experience for them to experience it. But one thing, man, that I think a lot of people that either follow you or know you, that you said when you talk about not being disciplined. Yeah. I don't think anybody like how you're in great shape, man. You create so much financial success. How the hell are you not disciplined? But then you follow that up with, this is my number one secret to my success. Yeah. Right, is the restriction. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. It's funny. I'm glad you brought that up. Everyone would always tell me I'm not disciplined. My mentors in the boardroom would say you're not disciplined. And I would try to become more disciplined. I'd set that goal. Like, I want to be more disciplined. And I've never accomplished the goal. I'm creative. I enjoy the me time. And I'm just not disciplined. And I would hear various people talk about discipline. People that come from disciplined environments, like, today's day and age, we have a lot of ex-military leaders writing books about leadership and things like that. And they would say, all you need to be is more disciplined. And I'd be like, I'm not a SEAL. I wasn't in the military. I don't enjoy perhaps being disciplined for the sake of being disciplined. But what I learned was a hack to becoming disciplined. I reverse engineered the subject of discipline. Being disciplined is a default of something else. It happens as a result of something else. You don't just, unless you were raised that way and had good parents or went into a system of discipline in sports or the military, you're not going to be disciplined by default. And so that's why so many people are undisciplined, right? So restriction is a way to build resilience. And when you build resilience, you will ultimately become disciplined. So by restricting certain things, I make room for other things. So, I'm learning how to sing. And so I have to restrict certain things. I get up super early, I do my lessons, so that way I get them done before the day gets going and before everybody wakes up, and I can sing the way I want to sing. And I have to restrict waking up late in order to wake up early, right? So restriction results in discipline. And restriction builds a force in you. So if you restrict, for example, from eating bad, you'll have more health and vitality to do things that are good, right? But if you eat bad, you won't have that health and vitality. I used to drink a lot. I used to love it. And I don't have a problem with people who drink. I just realized that by restricting alcohol, I make room to do more sharing and more giving and more quality work, right? So I no longer drink. I've adopted a plant-based lifestyle. I wake up super early. I do my routines every morning with extreme discipline now, because I see it as a form, because I utilize the force of restriction. So you have to restrict. For example, though, restriction is beyond discipline, though, because you have to restrict from negative thinking to have positive thinking, But you don't think like, I need to be more disciplined about my positive thinking, right? That just doesn't really vibe, right? So you have to use the force of restriction against your own reaction. So if I normally react and I lose my temper, I have to restrict that in order to, to not have poor relationships or to have conflict or to have crisis, right?
Yeah.
So the more that you utilize the force of restriction, I had to restrict my impulses, right? In order for me to have more groundedness and more sound wisdom. I had to restrict friends in order to get to know myself. I had to restrict my desire for fame in order to, really connect to my soul, right? Because I was out there worrying about other people's opinions and doing a lot of things that would, perpetuate my name and my books, and I had to restrict those things that would come to me in order to make room and to grow and to develop new wisdom, new information, and new light. So the force of restriction results in you having discipline. And no one ever teaches you that. They tell you need to be more disciplined. Or as an entrepreneur, I love this. People are like, you just need to execute better. It's all about execution. And every entrepreneur we know has said this, guilty of it. Like entrepreneurship is about execution, execution, execution. But then nobody tells you how to execute or what execution is.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, you just need to execute more. And then you're like, oh, okay, I suck at execution. I suck as an entrepreneur. And what is execution? I like to break things down. Execution is knowing what to do, knowing how to do it, and then doing your job, right? And so I break it down even further. If you don't know what to do, we'll talk about all the things of the what to do. If you don't know how to do them, we'll talk about how we can learn or who we can get connected to that'll teach us how to do it. And if you're not doing your job, then we'll break that down and say, why aren't we doing our job? Is it because we don't have the energy? We don't have the vitality? Is it because we're not utilizing the force of restriction? Is it because we don't have the clarity we need? We don't feel like we're on purpose? But you can solve the execution problem within one of those three buckets, right? Or, you might have to solve multiple problems within the three buckets, and then you can execute. So no one ever really breaks things down to explain to people, yes, you have an execution problem. That's obvious. You're not able to get projects done. Now let's solve that execution problem here, right? So I spent 2 years. I would hear a pundit on TV or a venture capitalist that I knew talking, and they'd talk about, it's not about the idea, it's about the execution. And I would be like, bullshit. Ideas are the most powerful force in the universe. Like, if you got a great idea, it's fantastic. Then all you need is the execution. And with the best idea in the world, you can hire for execution, right? If you're not executing, then let's just take that and break that down and reverse engineer what execution is. So I like to take, I'm a principally driven person. I like to take these principles and these things that I see and then reverse engineer them to very simple things that I can then duplicate and use as an operating system for how I conduct myself as a father first and foremost, as a leader secondarily, and then as an entrepreneurial leader.
Yeah, love it. Such powerful stuff, man. When it comes to manifestation, because you're the, hands down the most powerful manifester I've met, and one of the most powerful on the planet. And you're on your patio here, just a little bit before we hit the record button here, and you're showing a tower that was one of your old businesses, and how you're sitting at the tower like, one day I'm going to have a house right over there in these hills, and then boom, now you are right here with multiple houses. Right? What is the really key to manifestation? Because we, a lot of us have watched the documentary, like The Secret, or whatever. But then it's like, man, how do you?
They make it so complex.
Yeah, how do you manifest and do it to that level?
Yeah, well, it's crazy because I've thought a lot about this, and I've tried to reverse engineer the times that I've manifested, how I predicted the future, or I saw how things were gonna, happen, and so I've done a lot of thinking about this subject. One is you have to take action, but first and foremost, you have to speak it into existence. The voice is very powerful, and the word is very powerful. It's like casting a spell. And so when I was on that tower, I was talking to a person, and I declared that I'd one day live in those hills. And that was a powerful declaration that I declared. And then, my subconscious, the forces at work that you can't see, whatever you want to call that spiritually, did all kinds of work to take action on the things that I needed to take action on in order for me to one day wind up, in my dream home, basically, in the neighborhood that I wanted to live in. So you have to first declare what you're going to do and you have to speak it publicly. Because using your voice, the voice is very powerful. It's one of the most powerful forces in the universe. And I've just, learned how to use my voice and share my voice and declare my voice and declare my intentions. And the intentions were very pure. Your intent and your action have to match up, and you have to make sure that your actions don't have unintended consequences. Your intention might be pure, but your actions might not actually be the best course of action for the intention. So if you want to manifest, first you put this, you speak it into existence, and first you set your intention, then you speak it into existence, and then you take action that is, that is the best actions you can take, factoring in all of the intended and unintended consequences of each action. So, anybody can manifest. I've just figured out how to do it. It's like a gift of mine. And I play with it a lot. I practice it. And now, I practice it in a very granular way. It's like if I want to attract a talented person, for my company, I'll put it out there, I'm looking for this. I'll speak it out there that I'm looking for. A videographer, for example, is a role that we're looking for. Put that out there. And then when I see a videographer show up into my life or, come my way, I honor that happened. I thank the person that introduced me to the videographer. I dive in and really build a connection with that videographer because I'm like, this is manifestation happening here, right? A lot of times people will say, they'll pray for something, they'll see a sign, they'll pray for a sign, they'll see the sign, but then they won't take action on that sign, they won't acknowledge that sign, they won't stop what they're doing and see it as an altar call moment. That's why we named it the company, and say like, I prayed for a sign, I saw the sign, now it's time to take action. Like, thank you God, I'm going, right? As opposed to, what most people do is they pray for a sign, they see the sign, and then they pray for another sign.
Yeah, such powerful stuff, man. And just a follow-up question to the manifestation of how important is belief when it comes to that? Right? Like, hey, saying I want this thing and then, looking for the signs and taking action, but is there an element of belief where you have to, I get you might have some doubt still, right? But, Oprah talks about this of even having a mustard seed of belief, right? And how the importance of belief that it is possible for you. How important is the belief to be able to manifest?
So belief leads to knowing. And so you have to start with belief. And I would even take a step back. So, I started with faith, and I have faith, right? I have faith that things are going to work out. I have faith that I'm going to make the right decisions to get in the right position. So I have faith. And then belief is, do I believe in myself? Do I believe, do I believe in the entrepreneurial system that I've created? Do I believe in my company? Do I believe in my team? Do I believe in my philosophies, right? Like, do I really believe in the philosophical and principles and values? Like, do I believe in my values, right? So if you have clarity in your values, you have clarity in your principles, and you have belief in them, like, there's no way you're converting me to your belief. If I were to tell you, like, I have principles, healing is painful. And if you told me, no, it's not, Ryan, like, you and I are going to have an argument for the rest of our lives on this subject. You're never going to convert me to your belief on that, because I know for a fact it's painful. I've been through the pain of healing, and it is painful, and that's why most people don't heal. But that's a simple, thing. I have a belief in that philosophy. And yes, I'm open to other people's ideas, but you attack one of my beliefs, and you better be well armed. And we're going to go at it, not in a violent way by any means, but like, it's on, right? These are my beliefs. So I have very strong beliefs that I've accumulated and adopted from great mentors, from my experience. And those beliefs are rooted in faith. So I have faith, like, this mentor came in my life, this person has come into my life as a reason. You have come into my life as a reason. I have that belief, and I have no doubt about that. You're supposed to help me with the piece of my puzzle, and I'm supposed to help you with the piece of your puzzle. And that's why we got connected in the way we got connected in AlterCall and the time at which we're connected. Like, no doubt in my mind whatsoever that our connection, I remember when we did the Rock Bottom to Rockstar podcast, I remember, you were like just so filled with light and like appreciation. And I've done a lot of podcasts where, the person just didn't come as prepared and didn't come as, is energetic to it. And so I remember clearly doing the podcast with you, and I've done a few hundred of them in my life, and especially on a book tour, you're doing a lot of them. And I'll never forget, you were standing up at the podium, and you had your hat on backwards, and you were filled, with this just enthusiasm. And so now we're sitting here, and I have a belief in this moment. And a lot of times people just don't have belief in the moment. They don't have belief in the people that are sent to them. Yeah. Right? And when I say people that are sent to you, you could be walking down the street and see a vagrant, on a park bench, and that might be a message that you should be receiving. It might trigger something within you. You might see or hear the birds in the morning, or, there's some things that are sent to you that should renew your belief. And so I'm constantly looking to strengthen and renew my beliefs, but the ultimate stage of being, and this is my next level of elevation, is just knowing.
Yeah.
Right? And I try to concentrate on that word a lot. So for example, my son has recently had his own transformation, having applied some of the practices that we do at AlterCall, and he no longer is suffering from symptoms of autism. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And he's behind in school though, because, he used to have what's called a behavioralist that was with him at all times during school, an adult, basically an adult connected to him at all times. And now that he no longer needs a behavioralist, he no longer needs a speech therapist, he no longer needs an OT therapist, but he still is behind in school because, he wasn't able to pick up with everybody else. And so I get that belief that my son's gonna catch up one day. But I need to have that belief go to a stage of knowing. And knowing means I know I'm gonna take the actions necessary to get him the tutors. I know he's gonna heal and progress and learn how he learns differently than the other children. It's like, I need to get to a stage from belief to knowing.
Yeah.
Right? And I've been doing the deep work on that because I don't wanna, I believe my son's gonna get there and catch up and even go past catching up, but excel. But I need to shift to knowing. And I need to shift to that level of knowing to lead him to that level of knowing.
Yeah.
Right? So ultimately our highest, but you have to build faith, then you have to build your beliefs, and then once you've tested that belief enough, it becomes knowing.
Yeah.
Right? And then once you have knowing, you're uncompromising on that. I always used to use the analogy. My grandmother, when I talk about belief, she was a devoted Mormon her whole life. She passed away at 99 years old. She came from multiple generations. I would tell people, you'll never convert my grandmother. If you try to convert my grandmother to a new religion, good luck to you. She believes in this religion. It's been in her family forever. She's lived her way and conducted her way of life every single day for 99 years. She treated her body like a temple. She followed her principles. You would never convince my grandmother otherwise, right? Yeah. Her level of belief had graduated to a level of knowing that this was the right way for her to live. And, I never try to talk her out of that because, you couldn't talk a person out of that level of knowing. So belief is very important to manifestation.
Yeah. Well, it's been so cool to witness here the last few days, because I've heard you talk about it before, but, without witnessing it, it's like, okay, I've heard you talk about, hey, man, if I'm looking for this specific person in my life, right, I'll manifest on it and they show up, right? You hear that stuff, you're like, all right, there's gotta be more to it than that. But
there is more.
Yeah. But then also meeting your team and meeting, some of your friends that have been here for the last couple days, right? And listening to their stories of how they showed up in your life, and I'm like, holy shit, right? It's almost to the point, I get goosebumps, almost teary-eyed even thinking about it, because it's so magical to experience and see that. It's unreal.
Well, there's a secret that, that's behind the movement of AlterCall, and that is my practice of manifestation.
Yeah.
And the work that I do to try to strengthen that skill is a daily thing, and it takes a lot of work. But that's the secret. And when I say manifestation, I also mean not only do we attract the right quality and the right caliber of people, but we then inspire them and activate them to actually do the work that they know that they need to do. And that's a miracle, because all too often, as you know, in leadership, you're trying to tell your team, you have to tell them what to do, how to do it, and then you have to be on top of them every day to make sure that they're doing what they said they were going to do. And yes, you can get a lot of output with that, that intense management style, but it's much better when you have a team that's just doing the work and they're finding the projects that they need to be found if they don't have work to do. they're bettering the team, they're called to serve at a higher level. And so with AlterCall, I like to tell people I'm using divine craftsmanship, right? Because I get to start all over. I get to start brand new, day one, new company. We started with just one person, then we've added another person, added a couple other people, and we'll continue to add more people. And, we won't always get it right. Some people will not like that type of an environment where, we're manifesting. Some people want structure and plans, and they want to come in and punch a clock and leave. I want people that are committed to, to doing life with me and to building this business into what it's capable of and into service. Building this business into a vehicle that serves, as many people as we humanly can. And that requires growth from all of us, and healing. Growth requires healing, and healing, as I've said, is painful. And so it's not easy, but sometimes it feels easy. Yeah. We're a new team, and anytime you put together a new team, you have to learn each other, and you have to grow together, and you have to build trust with each other. And we're doing that now, and so it's a lot of fun. Thank you for the compliment. I was always told the best leaders have just display the best teams. Yeah. And so a lot of the time I reflect on how am I getting out of the way. Even when the team wants more of me and more of me, I have to make sure that I'm spending the time spending the time with myself, thinking about my actions, about my decisions, about our strategy, about our plans, about our philosophies, right? I have to make sure that I'm putting the time into that to make sure that I'm building something that will, continue to scale with that divine craftsmanship and architecture.
Yeah, love it, man. And last night we talked a lot about abundance, and that kind of transitioned into being prepared for a potential recession, right? And it's one of these things. History repeats itself. Yeah. It's none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know when, but we all know it's inevitable to happen. Can you kind of walk us through because you've been through multiple recessions and have built massive wealth through this journey. And for those that are watching and listening, I get a dozen questions a day of fear about, especially in real estate, the next real estate recession, because we're seeing, feels like 2005, 2006 all over again. Right? Like, oh, hey man, you get this offer, you get to write this offer, 20,000 over any 20 or 30,000 over any appraisal that or any comp that can be justified, and appraisal comes in clean. It's the wild, wild west again, right? So there's a lot of fear around that. Can you just walk us through what your, I guess, philosophies are around abundance and how to handle recessions?
Yeah. Well, I started my career early on as a commodities broker, and so I was a Series 3 broker, so I would study commodities and commodity patterns. And I would look at back data from the history of the commodities market and the stock market and look for patterns. Like that was my first job, not my first job, but like my second job was to do market research. So I've studied every recession that we've been into, and I've lived through some recessions, and the Visalis success was a product of the 2008 recession. We were selling a luxury product at that time, and the 2008 recession hit, credit facilities were dropped, we were an auto ship business shipping out $125 a month product to people that had credit cards, and all of a sudden people's credit limits were canceled, all their credit limits were canceled. They were no longer able to borrow funds off the appreciation of their homes, or all of that stuff dried up. And so my business went from $2.5 million a month in sales down to near bankruptcy. We accumulated a ton of debt. We were losing a ton of money. I think when we bottomed out, it was around $600,000 a month in sales, and we were losing $600,000 a month, and we only had $600,000 left. So I was down to 1 month to live, and I had over $7 million in debt at the time. So it was tough. And the actions that we took, me and my great team that I assembled, were to create a new message that met the new consumer first and foremost. So we went from having a luxury product that was about anti-aging to a product that was about saving money in the grocery store line. And so first you're going to lose weight, save money in the grocery store line, and if you help 3 friends do it, you would get your product for free. While my competition was selling people, they would become a millionaire if they engaged in the direct selling business model that we were a part of, I was telling people just get your product for free. And so all of a sudden all the consumers were like, that sounds like a great idea. I just have to do a little work to get a product for free. So as everybody became recession-minded, I created a product and a program and a series of programs that were conducive to recession-minded people. So by the year 2010, I knew that this was going to be huge. So by 2008, at the end of 2009, I was like, I might be out of business. End of 2009, I was like right about to close the doors. By the end of 2010, I knew I had a $100 million business in my hands. So in 1 year's time, the changes that I made at the end of 2009, and my team made, I should say, resulted in us having a business that became a $620 million business that did over $100 million a year in profit by the year 2012. So whatever we go through as a result of the coronavirus that we're going to experience, and it is going to create a recession for some people. You know, if you're in the travel industry, you're going to have to make some shifts, right? We know that this global epidemic is going to be held in the travel industry. That's not going to change dramatically anytime soon. And the consumer, which we all depend on, is going to change their habits by the nature of this event, right? We're already seeing them stock up on toilet paper, right? That's a changing consumption patterns. And although we might laugh at it, make fun of it, that's a change in consumption patterns. And so the smartest of us look at these changes in consumption, and we then create new products, new programs, new offerings, new messaging to meet where we think the consumer is going to go. You know, the old Wayne Gretzky quote where he says, I don't go where the puck is, I go where the puck's going to be. I think to paraphrase it, we have to go where the consumer's going to be. And right now, you know, the data is going to be coming out that's going to give us some indicators of where the consumer will be. But I can tell you that, you know, that the economic impact of this is going to be much bigger than we suspect. Hopefully, we'll be able to mitigate the health impact of this in the best way possible. But shutting down the economy is the only way that will mitigate the health impacts of this. And so, you know, we're going to have one or the other or both, a major health impact and a major economic impact. And, you know, the only thing that we can do is work our butts off during this time with the knowing, in the belief, but the knowing that we're going to fortify, we're going to create strength from this. Our business is going to be better off for it. We're going to renegotiate contracts, loans. When people go out of business, that's going to be opportunity for us. If buyers in the market disappear, we're going to shift to sellers. If sellers in the market disappear, we're going to shift to buyers. If both of those disappear, we're going to shift to hedge funds that have billions of dollars in liquidity that can, you know, plan for a future that is that's made the adjustments, right? So, you know, right now is the time that you have to just throw off the gloves and just be like, oof, it's time to go. Yeah. Right? Like right now is the time that we all need to double down on investing in ourselves. We need to recession-proof ourselves mentally. We need to be preparing for a rainy day and know that, you know, that there are some things that we're going to have to cut back on, some things that we're going to have to make some game time adjustments. And from making those game time adjustments, we do them, but we do them because it's like, of course I'm going to give up this because I know I'm going to get this as a result. So I could restrict the vacation this year. You know, I'm going to restrict. I'm going to have to stay in my house, which is a form of restriction if we're on quarantine. But what I do when I stay in my house is where the magic comes. Yeah. Right. So like, if I have 14 days in my house, I'm not just going to sit around and be bored all day long and watch Netflix. I'm going to write that book that I always dreamed of. I'm going to create that business plan. I'm going to update my website. I'm going to do virtual summits. I'm going to do all kinds of things, right? As opposed to engaging in the fear, engaging in you know, the panic. I'm going to figure out a way to turn this into my moment. Yeah, that's my mindset. Now maybe I just did some manifestation there.
Yeah, no, I love. You know, I've asked so many experts on their take on recession and planning for recessions, and you're the first person I've ever had on the podcast or even off the podcast in any interview setting or just picking their brains of talking about tapping into self-development. Yeah. You know, right? Because it is so many people between the fear or then like the situation in Visalis, so many people get paralyzed and if mentally where they just can't take action, you know, right? But if you don't have that self-development component where you're not clear-headed.
Yeah. You know, well, you need to be learning from people like ourselves that have been through recessions. So listen to the people that have been through them. You know, we're going to guide our people. You're going to guide your people as best as you possibly can. You know, in recessions, you see upticks in alcohol consumption. right? So that's one of the primary industries. And in a recession, somebody is winning. We have a zero-sum game market. So as travel has been shut down, the grocers are cleaning up right now, right? So somebody is going to win because the consumer is going to have to spend to continue to survive. So we know that we have a robust economic system. Even if it gets really bad, Americans as a whole, we are very strong individuals. We're the wealthiest country in the world. We're at the best place that we can possibly be to deal with this particular time. So knowing that, it's the actions that we take. And when I said alcohol consumption, goes up, so people are going to try to escape reality during this recession. And that's good for the people who sell alcohol or cannabis or any of the things that help you escape reality. I don't sell those products, and I don't believe that escaping reality is the solution, because the reason why we're having this problem is because we've been trying to escape reality for 100 years, that this day would one day come. The last pandemic was the Spanish flu, and for 100 years we could have been preparing for this reality, and we just didn't. And as a result of that lack of preparedness for this, and Bill Gates has been screaming this from the mountaintops, I get the chills all over me just saying this. That man has been saying that a pandemic could come at any moment and we're not ready. And instead, what did we do? We focused on, the bubbles. We focused on economics. We focused on capitalistic economic related systems that would better humanity, reduce poverty, which were good, but now we got to focus on health. Because we're going to realize really soon here that if you're not healthy, you're in trouble, particularly in the case of a pandemic. And I happen to be healthy and you happen to be healthy, but we all have friends and family and relatives who are not, some of which is by their own decisions, and some of which is by the unfortunate nature of the society we live in and the culture we live in, and the fact that there's cancer and there's toxic substances in the foods that we've taken in, the water that we've taken in, the air that we breathe, that have resulted in inferior bodies to deal with viruses. And so we're plagued with hypertension and diabetes, and we're plagued with lung disease, and we're plagued with all kinds of things that are sometimes not our own fault and our own doing. And unfortunately, people that have such difficulties, and they're going to suffer the most, and that's going to be hard on us. There's children that are going to suffer from this. There's elderly that we love are going to suffer from this. And so, right now, the AlterCall moment that our humanity is in is to focus on health. We've been focused on economics since the Spanish influenza, right? Lots of economic thought and energy has gone into that. Now we need to focus on the public health.
Yeah.
And that's the change that the world's going to have to shift to as a result of this.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's so crazy to think about, but it's so dead on, right? And after what we just spent the last few days going through, for the first time in my life, not just having the clarity, but this, the tools and the skill set on, and when you talk about health, it's not just what a lot of people think of with health, meaning, our body health, but our mental health, all those different components of it. And, but going through this experience, man, with the last couple of days, it's, as I mentioned before, having that clarity. And as you talked about, having the knowing, but for the first time in my life, having the true desire. Yeah. And not just, it's like, all right, for the first time in my life, I feel like, okay, now I have the knowing, the desire, but in the skill sets to take my business to levels I've never seen before. Yeah. But every aspect of my life, right? I'm just so grateful for this experience, man, and so blessed to be here with you. And for those that are watching and listening that want to learn more about AlterCall, where's and we'll have a link below for that as well. But where's the best place, man, to go out there and learn more about AlterCall, just in case they're driving down the road listening to this and they don't have a pen and paper, but to learn more about it, but also to follow you, man, because you're putting out so much great content. You write so much great content. I've been following you from afar for over half a decade now. Thank you. Where are the best places to do that at?
Well, one, thank you for acknowledging the experience that we just went through together and what you've received from that experience. That's music to my ears. Like, I'm maniacally focused on the customer, which you are to me as a result of coming through this experience. So, we're more than customer relationship. I feel like we're brothers now. But like, I have to make sure that the work that I do gets people results, unlike the other systems that are out there and the other venues that are out there to receive personal growth related content. And so I spent 2 years of my life thinking about in detail every element that we introduce you to over the 28-hour period. And we continue each time we do an introduction of these modalities and these methods and these philosophies, we continue to refine and get better. So thank you for that. For those people that want to engage with AlterCall, you can follow me. I'm Real Ryan Blair on Instagram, Ryan Blair on Facebook. I'm going to be doing a series of lives and let the world know if you link up with me on Facebook and on Instagram. I have a website that'll be coming up soon at altercall.com. It's not up yet. It'll be up hopefully by the time this podcast gets released. But it is a brand new company and a brand new movement. So if it's not, the best way to get a hold of me would be on Instagram, and they can DM me. I'm constantly engaging with the people that are seeking this wisdom, because it is my duty to serve as many people as I possibly can. Like, I made a deal in this house as I was going through the most difficult times. I knew that somehow going through this darkness was going to lead me to light. I didn't know, I don't know how maybe I was being divinely guided, but I just knew the darker it got, the more I was going to shine one day. And even when people didn't believe that, they saw the darkness, I was you're going to be proven incorrect here, right? You saw the darkness and you think I'm not going to shine because of this? You're incorrect. I'm going to shine. And the darker that it gets, the more that I'm going to shine. And so let's go dark. Let's dive into the dark as deep as I could, because I knew that somehow engaging in that force and not being afraid of it and getting it out of me, right? And ridding myself of it once and for all would create a light within me that could shine in a way that would transfer on to others. And so that's what AlterCall does, is it helps you find that light within you by removing the dark, by removing the negative, that you can get that light within you that helps your soul shine. And so that's the experience that you're feeling right now, that experience of activation. And that's my mission. If I have a gift of helping people activate that thing within them, that spark within them, and then have them develop that spark into a sustainable energy of light that they're able to then give to others, then I have a solemn duty to do that. Right? And and I'll rest at nothing. I'll do whatever it takes to do that, to give that to as many people as I possibly can. And that's the other aspect of it, just to conclude, is you have restriction and then you have sharing. And if you restrict properly, then you can share more. And so now that I've been able to harness the force of restriction, I can now share. And I can share in ways that I couldn't before. And so it's a privilege to be able to share with you, my brother.
Yeah, no, it's a huge honor, man. And it's so hard to articulate into words how powerful the experience has been. And I'm so excited to continue the journey. And for those watching and listening, you guys, I've spent over $1 million over my 15 years in entrepreneurship on courses, programs, coaches, events, conferences. And I can tell you this is hands down the most powerful experience I've ever been through. And I highly recommend that you guys check it out. Get in this room, go through this. This is something that, in my opinion, everybody needs. And I just can't wait for what the future holds after going through this experience, and just excited for it. And for those that are watching and listen, as always, thank you so much for watching and listen, and for all your support. And Ryan,
thank you.
Man, I can't thank you enough for this experience and your friendship and your mentorship. And it's just amazing to be here, my friend.
Yeah, this is awesome, brother. Well, we got a lot of work to do, and I have no doubt that we've been called to do it, just like the people that are watching this right now. We have a lot of work to do. It's a matter of taking action on that work that we know that we're called to do. And so thank you for this great interview. It's the first interview that I've done in depth like this, and so I'm happy to share.
Yeah, thank you, man. Again, it's an honor. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time. Peace.